material embraces different modes at different points in the story. And my first attempt at it was extremely faithful to the story, but was a difficult contract to make with the audience, who expected it to be a certain kind of a film from its opening scenes, and then found it became something slightly different. And so we reminted it. We actually did quite a substantial amount of new work on it, and Anthony Minghella and Sidney Pollack, friends of mine, now both sadly dead tragically, became involved as executive producers, and we had a fantastic time working on a sort of second part of the shooting and completed it. It's the way it goes. You can't, one moves on. I think you have to expect tenacity from a director, or should we say greed, just to get the thing to where you want it to be. And I can't complain that I had the opportunity to do that. I did. As Tom Stoppard once said to me, I don't know why one can't get it in one, meaning sometimes you have to take 2 or 3 runs at something to get it, and it's, in that particular case, one would hope one could get it, do the redrafting at script stage, but actually we tripped up somewhere in terms of possibly a kind of a fidelity to the original material. I felt so respectful of Elmore's book that I was loath to depart from it, and I think there's some things that you have to do in certain stories of his. Again, he would be the first to agree. As I'm sure most people know, but if they don't, it's a small, what one might call a studio space. It's actually an old warehouse in Covent Garden, which implies something huge. It isn't huge, but it's a big rectangular box with a 3-sided auditorium and a stage that thrusts out into that. That's very unadorned. So it dispenses obviously with any kind of proscenium arch notion of theatre. What's very unusual about it is it's extraordinarily intimate with its audience. So it's pictorially still a strong space to work in. You can create very strong pictures there, but you're never far away. The actors are never far away from the audience. It's somewhat actually reminiscent of Elizabethan theatre in that respect, because the relationship is the same. The audience surrounds you on 3 sides, which obviously imposes certain requirements on the way you block a piece. It's got a kind of golden reputation, that theatre. It's, its first 10 years, I think, under Sam Mendes, it just established an incredible reputation for consistency and quality and extraordinariness, which has continued equally as strongly under Michael Grandage, who now runs it. And I was just in the sort of crossover period. Michael Grandage was about to take up the reins when I did proof there. And Sam Mendes and I had been talking about my doing something there for a couple of years, but my schedule didn't allow anything the first year. And when we came to discuss it the second year, that we've been talking about it, he mentioned that he had the rights to do a production of Proof, which was a play I had read and admired, and which I had assumed the original American production would come to London, but evidently the producers wanted to see a new production of it. So yes, we did that. That was the play we chose to do. And actually, it didn't immediately occur to me to ask Gwyneth to do it, but as I pondered what the options were in terms of actors for it, she suddenly popped into my head in the middle of one night, and I asked her. Somewhere in there, Harvey Weinstein, who was then running Miramax, as it was still then, bought an option on the play, which I suspect was not completely unconnected with the fact that Gwyneth and I were doing it in London. But the theatrical production was completely independent of that, and neither of us, or certainly not me, thought about adapting it as a film until after we'd finished the production in London. And I then began to wonder whether there was a way of reconceiving it in film terms, which we then did. It's a difficult question to answer. I don't know that I'm the best one to adjudicate it. I mean, I think that, my feeling was, if you were simply going to do a masterpiece theatre version of it and sort of import the stage production to film, that was not a valid undertaking, it seemed to me. I mean, it would be a valid undertaking in a different format. Some for example, television strand that was dedicated to doing that. I had no objection to that. But for it to earn its keep as a film, I think it had to be reconceived, which I think and hope we were successful in doing, because there were certain opportunities and things that arose as a result of dealing with it in a different medium. It's a mystery story, so that was the kind of key, I suppose. We started to reconceive it in those terms, but other people would have to judge whether we maintained or lost our perspective. Quite a challenge, frankly. I mean, it's such an extraordinary project that when the circumstance came up and Roger had to step away from it, somebody I knew, and he asked me whether I would consider taking this on because he didn't, want the production to kind of founder and stop. I thought it was wonderful material, and but equally, you can't make a film unless you can, I suppose, make it your own, just as a way of, I mean, not in any kind of grandiose way, but just you have to believe in every footstep you're making, and prepare the ground underneath you so it feels solid, which means reconceiving, the material and the script from the ground up. That was the only difficulty, I would say, with that project, was that there wasn't necessarily enough time for me to do that, and I entered the project assuming that there was, but the train, as it were, had already left the station, and I was struggling to get from the guard's van, up to the driver's seat in time. So that was tough. We went into it still with some script issues open, which, but that said, it was a fantastic experience to make.